Hey everybody, Jessica Henry Gray here in my studio. I have a fun project that we're going to work on this week. I'm stepping away from plein air and I thought it'd be kind of exciting to do this beautiful tiger. I will show you a better picture of that here. I was at the zoo this weekend and we're celebrating my daughter's 13th birthday and I met this gorgeous tiger, and so I thought, you know what, let's paint this tiger, and I did not want to miss this opportunity. So I have my canvas here and I am all set to go. Okay, so on my palette today, the colors that I will be using are titanium white, cad yellow medium, cad red light, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and alizarin crimson. I didn't put any phthalo green on it today because I really didn't need it. I'm going to keep this tiger painting fairly simple. I'm going to put him looking this way and with his leg kind of down here, right in there. So I don't even know if I'm going to do any of the background on it. What I really want to play with on this painting is to pull out some of the complementary colors in the fur and so forth, like this beautiful blue in the orange. So I'll show you some more of that as we're going along. Okay, so let's jump in. All right, so I'm going to begin with just a tonal wash over this whole canvas. I'm going to take some odorless mineral spirits on my palette here, and I'm going to start with just a burnt sienna, yellow ochre underpainting. And I'm choosing these colors because they're going to act as my foundation for my tiger. Canvas cover. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is begin by drawing out my tiger and where he's going to be on the canvas. And I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush just to lay it in and get the placement on here just so. So I think, let's see, big decisions. If I want his head to be about here, ear, head in here, neck, shoulder. I'm looking at the negative space underneath it here. Not that I'm getting anything accurate at this point. I'm just trying to decide where it's going to fit on my canvas. I don't want the objects too close to the edge of the canvas, so just keeping it kind of loose so I can get it right. I'm kind of liking that amount of importance in here. Maybe looking this way. And I really liked the sun hitting the front of his chest over here, so I do want to try to get some of that in there. Okay, so I think that that's overall just fine for the size and placement. Now I want to figure out exactly where his eye line is going to be. The nose, roughly. That's good. Okay, so I like to start with the eyes. So if I start with this eye right here, this one will be tucked into the nose about right there. So if I get those where I want them, I'm not worried about the contour of the head or any of that yet. I just want to make sure that these are where they're going to be. Edge of the nose. The nose comes down like this, and there's an outside passage for his cheek on the other side of the bridge of the nose here. There's some really beautiful shadow shapes going on in his face here that I want to make sure that I sort of sculpt out. Looking at this negative shape. You really do want to get the drawing as accurate and in place as possible before moving on too far. There are minor things you can fix along the way, but for the most part, you really do want things to be in the right place before getting too deep into your painting. Just making that nose, it just felt like it was getting too big, so I want to make it a little bit smaller. And you really can't see my palette right now, but all I'm doing is using the burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue at this point. So I'm just establishing these patterns and these shapes of darks in here and trying to get them in the right location and relationship to each other. I'm also looking at the contour, the top contour of the ears, top of the head, and that shape in there, how that plays against each other there. Using these darker stripes as indication of where some of the other features connect with. So the jaw under here kind of connects with this darker stripe that works its way around his head. And some of these spots. I try to think with any animal painting I do, it's every bit as much of a portrait as a regular portrait. So I want to try to be authentic to the character and personality of who it is I'm painting. And I do believe that all animals have their own character. And I don't know, do you call it a personality? Something that makes them unique. I've had animals all my life, and all sorts of different animals too. I never got tired of them. We had chickens and llamas and horses and pheasants, goats, everything from a hermit crab up to whatever. I mean, you name it. I even had a rat named Trudy once. She was very sweet. I'm seeing where the cheek here kind of does this round bulge right here. It comes down, and where that is in relation to the other stripes. And there's smaller ones in there. So I'm feeling good about placement of those objects in relation to each other. The ear. And now there's this beautiful sunspot hitting his neck back here, so we'll get all that in. And then judging at the negative space shape under between the chin and the chest, I'm going to get that just right. This stripe comes down around the neck. Then there's another one here. Comes there. Then there's one here. This is a big one. So this shape in here levels out a little bit more than I have it. So I'm going to get this a little bit more accurate right here. Still feeling a little bit pinched. Too low. Okay, and then this ear is pretty dark. Get that in. And then this one's all in shadow, so I'll give it a little bit of a gray. Kind of rub out like that. Now I can clean my brush off, or even just take a clean brush. Dip it in a little bit of the thinner, and I'm just going to pull out the whites. Rip off a chunk of paper towel and wipe that down. Even though it's orange, I still want to get the feeling of light hitting it intensely. I'm just going to darken in some of the blockier shapes of his form. Okay, so let's go for the bright light spots. Cadmium yellow, cad red, a little bit of linseed oil. Paint those colors together. Let's go with a little more yellow. And I'm going to make sort of a pile here of intensity differences. Oops. Okay, so we've got the bright yellow. That red goes a long ways. And let's even add a little bit of white into that. So over here I've got more of the orangey red, and down here I have the bright sunlit. So let's get that in place first. Looking at my picture, just determining exactly where I see it most intense. Might even take some burnt sienna into that just to tone it down just a teeny bit. Get a little bit of red into that sunlit yellow because I want it a little bit more sunlit orange. I'll even grab some alizarin crimson. And sometimes you might mix up a color and think, oh, that looks good, but maybe it's not quite the right shade for that area. You can just find somewhere else to put it. That's okay. I'm not gonna really get too worried about the black up in here where I'm just trying to get this form just right. I can add the stripes in a little bit. I'm coming over here to get a little bit darker orange, and so I'm going burnt sienna and yellow ochre. And some of that up in here too. Now when I get into incorporating some more shadow tones, I'm going to mix in a little bit more of the complement into the colors, such as in this case, where the shadow turns and goes down the side of his nose right here. I added a little bit more alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue to make it a little bit more purple, which is the opposite of yellow, and thereby making it go into shadow a little bit more believably. And I'm also cognizant of the way that the fur is falling on the face. I'm assuming it's pretty much like a cat, my kitties. You know, you pretty much have a general idea of the way that fur grows on a face. Going across the nose like that. And well, I have this sort of almost a pinkish tone, so I'm just going to grab that right now. See if that's right for the nose. Maybe not. Maybe a little bit more alizarin. How about some of that yellow? But all painting is a matter of laying down pieces of paint, just little pieces, and see how they interact with each other. And when it comes to values and form, it's all just little pieces of paint. So inside his mouth is that really dark purple tone. I'm just going to suggest some of that right down there. That's it for pinks. All right, I think while I'm focusing on the face, I'm going to get some of these lighter white areas, just where the sun is most intense. Maybe a little bit of cad yellow, just to really make that look sunlit. Maybe a little more white. There. Little brush strokes. Stop. Think about it. Another one. Down. Comes out. Just popping in these places where there was really bright intensity. Now, when painting fur, I try to give the edges that softer treatment, like a little flick here and there. It just gives it more of a feeling of a fluffy, soft animal. Okay, I think that was pretty much everywhere that was most intense. Okay, so right into that, I'm going to take some blue. And I don't know if that scoop that I just took is enough, so I'm just going to set it off to the side, and then I'll paint those colors together. That way I don't get too big of a pile going when I don't need that much. If I need a little more, then I can just grab a little more and put it right in there. Let's see how this is going to go. It needs to be darker. So take a little more blue. Maybe some alizarin. Okay, so I'm trying to get that value dark enough right in this area. I'll take some of that. I squint down at that and I still see it as being a little bit darker, so sometimes you never know if you've gone far enough until you push it too far, and then you can check. I think that's a little better. Let's make a nice dark pile here, and then into this I can grab if I need it a little bit darker. So I like this purple. Even if I push that violet tone a little bit more than what I see, it'll have a really nice interest in color. Get a little bit more yellow ochre into that mixture. As we come along the bottom of his jaw down here, the ground is bouncing up in it. So I just want a little bit of that glowing sort of white green under here. Again, more yellow popping up into this glow down below. Let's get some of it in this ear up here. Burnt sienna, ultramarine blue give you a really nice gray. A little bit of this cream color where the white fur blends into the orange fur. So we'll get some of those passages in here. Not a pop. Bright oranges. Alizarin, cad yellow.
Keys.
Oh, I forgot to mention, the whole time I've been using a size 4 flat brush. This is a synthetic, by the way. picking up the ambient light from his tongue, so it has sort of that peachy tone. And give that some shadow in there. And the underside of his mouth, there's a shadow in here. All right, I'm going to actually mix up a nice big pile of dark here. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Get a little linseed oil in there. That gives me an almost black. Now we're going to really start to see it pop. Taking some of this blue right here. Popping that into that transitional passage in there. And a little bit up in here too. And his eyes look like they're a little bit green, yellow, and ultramarine blue. Let's put some over here too. We can barely see that. So a nice big pile, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. All right, so I get to that point. Now I'm going to blend the fur around these black spots. First, I'm going to go with the lighter color over the black, and then I'm going to come and make the black go over the next layer. So I'll start with that. That'll make more sense as I work my way around the face here. So clean, dry brush, picking up that gray, wipe, because now it's got the black on it. So I wipe that off, and I can alternate my brush strokes a little bit this way and that way to make it look like that's fur overlapping that. Just focusing on these lighter colors first. So I don't mind that that gets a little softer and more muted down there. Now I'm going to clean my brush off really well, and I'm going to go into the darks, the stripes, and pull that into the next layer. I don't want to go too far. I just want to soften some of these because the fur is a lot shorter over here, and if I make these wispies too long, you'll kind of lose that feeling of a short fur coat over here. There's no point in seeing my palette. It's just the blue and brown. Okay, so before I add the whiskers and things, I'm going to add a little bit of really dark green to the background. So I'm just going to use some ultramarine blue, a lot of it, and some yellow. A little linseed oil. And we'll begin down here. Now we'll see it really start to pop. This darker green. And then I'm going to take, when I'm done with this green, I'll take and kind of just soften the fur into this background. And I'll get those whiskers in place too. Okay, one last step. cleaning my brush off really well, I'm going to go around and soften where the fur meets the background. And then they'll do the whisk. So after every swipe, I'm wiping my brush off because I don't want that blue-green up in here. I do want some of that glow right there. Okay, so now just to add a few of the whiskers, and a really inky mixture of the white. Oh, there's some yellow in there, that's okay. I'll just make it whiter.